So let's get started with the small little things that we have for you today. I have for you today. Let's get started with it. I put in the theory in this same PDF itself so that we don't have to go through two documents. So that's something that we'll do. Quick pointers to get the ball rolling, right? To get it started here, right? Uh, First of all, one thing that most of us think, right? One of the things, I have just 5 pointers, theory pointers for you guys. I'm not going to do a lot of theory. We'll focus on rather solving passages, right? Most of us, we think that RC is a reading skill, right? Along with the reading skill, it's actually a reasoning skill as well. So you have two types of students, right? You have two types of students. One person understands the passage very well, but still ends up with low accuracy in that passage. This is something that happens with a lot of people, right? Something that actually goes wrong in exams. So now in that particular case, if that is happening, right, with you guys or is happening with anyone, one of the things that you've got to ask yourself is, how are you reading the passage, right? So when you read the passage, we will actually practice this thing today, right? While reading the passage, you can write this down, that while reading the passage, you have to ask yourself, what is the structure of the passage? What function is each paragraph playing? What can you infer, right, from each passage? Remember, we are doing it without a timer. We have the luxury of time to do this. So let's try to do this where you try to find the main ideas and the structure of each particular paragraph. How does, because each paragraph contributes, right? Each paragraph contributes to the overall ideas of the passage. So let's try to figure out, how do those ideas come together? How does that story all tie up together, right? So we'll do that. Pranav, the recording for the session, I'm recording it right now. At the end of the session, I'll decide where to put it up, right? It's an open session, so I will figure out some way. Where does the recording go, right? Dhruv, yes, I saw you joined the course. The session today is in isolation to everything else, Dhruv. So there's no connection with anything else that we've done. So this is a complete standalone session. So let's do the session today, then I'll connect with you tomorrow and I'll get you started with your prep, right? So that's something that I'll do. So we'll take over there, right? So the one thing you guys will do, and one thing you'll do for in the passages, is you will read for structure, right? That's something that we will be applying here, right? We'll be applying another technique, the strip technique that we use for reading. So we will apply that as well. That is something that will apply on the first passage, and we'll try to see how much can be implemented, right? Second thing is, a lot of you, how many of you suffer from this, where you understand the passage, right, but you still get the questions wrong? You think you've understood the passage is fine, you've understood. See, there are, if you look at it from the perspective of any particular student, there are two parts to it, right? One is कि passage ही नहीं समझ आया, you did not understand the passage at all, right? So वहां तो the passage itself is a googly, it has completely destroyed you, right? And this is very when you don't understand the passage, it crushes your gut, because it makes you feel like, it makes you feel a little worthless, like that I can't understand this, right? But at times this can happen. So this is scenario number one, where the passage is exceptionally tough or is tough, you don't understand it. The second scenario is, you understood the passage, but you still got the questions wrong. Agreed. So this is also one huge problem that we have in reading comprehensions. Agreed, everyone. So these are a couple of very naughty little problems sneaking in. So this is something that, again, we will have to be careful about, right? We will have to look at the different answer choices. This is where the traps in answer choices come in, which we are going to. I would want you to write down all these traps, right? Just note down all these traps, right? So far, there is one thing that you should have written down is, you will, from today onwards, you will read for the structure of the passage. Structure is different from the content. So that is thing number one, right? The next thing that you write down is, are the different types of options, right? So one common trap that options, yeah, the different common traps that options set are, these are the different types of traps that we have in answer choices. One, it is too narrow. It is true, but it only covers one part of the passage, right? Does not cover the complete passage. Second, the answer choice is too broad. It sounds right, but claims more than the passage supports, right? So for example, if the passage is about, we can do an it's on any topic based on any state in India, right? You extend it to the whole country, right? You've gone from one state to the whole country, you've gone too broad, right? So you have to be careful whether you are going to narrow or broad. These are two option answer choices where we basically are playing with the scope of the passage. What is the passage talking about? So the scope of the passage is a defined circle, right? The circle of ideas that the passage is revolving around. Now, if you go out, step outside that scope, then there is a problem, right? You've gone too narrow, you've gone too broad. These are things that happen. Then the one of the biggest problematic answer choices is where you pick something, a fact, cause, relationship, which you pick from the passage itself, but you distort it, right? You introduce an error into it. Now, this error and this next one, right? Part for whole substitution, you mistake a supporting detail for the passage's main point, right? These two are very, very tricky ones, right? Because what do? They deceive you in one very clever way. When you read these two options, what does your mind say to you? When you read an answer choice which has just been distorted a little, right? The content is very similar to the passage, but it's been distorted. This distortion is introducing some kind of change in it, right? Or something which is there in the passage, but it is a supporting detail. It does not actually answer that given question. It might be correct information as per the passage, right? What does our human brain say? Anyone? When we read such information, when we discover such information in answer choices, maybe right, maybe wrong. One very curious thing that happens is we somewhere along the lines we feel we've read this line, right? So we develop this familiarity bias, right? So we are familiar with those because we think we've read this in the passage, right? So there is an instant bias in our minds, instant association. Why is this answer choice correct? Because I read kind of something like this which was similar in the passage, right? So this is something, and ये वो वाला फंडा हो जाता है जब आपको VARC में when the gut feeling calls you out, right? You read, and most of you have done this. I think all of you have solved some level of RCs, some level of comprehensions, right? I hope. And all of you would have, I think, let's have a quick poll on this, right? All of you would agree with me when I say that in VRC, we go through the passage, we read the questions. For question number one, option number C से feeling आता है. You get a feeling that this is right. We select it. Question number two, option B feels right. Right. So it's just the explanation that you give yourself when you ask yourself, why have you picked that answer choice? Right. The answer for that is it felt right. Right. So there is no logic behind it. You had a feeling that it was right. So that is what English does, VRC does to you. And there is one more thing that it does. Unlike QA, right? In QA, you need to find out the numerical value of the answer, right? For every question, you have to find out that final value. That outcome has to be found out, right? You make a calculation mistake, you'll get another answer, but there is still a number that you ultimately find out, right? In VARC, you read everything, you can attempt the question, right? There is nothing which is stopping you from attempting the question. You can still get a feeling that this is the answer, this is not the answer. So that is where this option elimination comes into the picture, right? That is where we study this, we try to apply these things. Another type of mismatch that we get in answer choices is tone mismatch, right? So where the tone uh, of the author has been changed. If the author said it in a different tone, the answer choice goes in a different tone, right? Then there is causal reversal where the opposite of the passage is stated, right? Where the cause and effect are flipped. That is causal reversal, right? Uh, False balance, you treat two things as equally weighted when the passage clearly favors one. So you see whether there is a false balance, or and most importantly, there is a scope creep or scope trap, right? So you introduce an idea which is just adjacent to adjacent to a mentioned in the passage, but it's actually not really stated. So you have this scope trap as well, which is you introduce an idea that is similar to the passage, but not quite there, right? So the major ones that you really, really have to be careful of, right? And the ones which will really decide your prep, right, is the one which is too narrow, too broad, right? where you change the scope, where you introduce new ideas into the passage, right? So you've just gone to adjacent ideas, you've distorted the information, you've got a partially correct answer, you've got a tone mismatch, right? So these are ones which are pretty common, and these are things that you've got to be careful about, right? So this is another part of your VARC uh, prep that you have to take care of. One more, if you guys have this doubt, you can confirm in the chat messages. Do you guys have this question in your minds? How to analyze VARC mocks? How to analyze VARC mocks? Okay. So this is a actual genuine problem you guys should have, right? That how should you go about it? Because quant you can clearly see what is there to analyze. You learn from those questions. In VRC, you can't really decide what is it that you're learning. Agreed? That what is it that you're searching for? So there are some very, very important pointers that you've got to keep in mind for VRC mocks. So let's assume you guys have taken a section test, a VRC section test or a VRC mock, right? One thing that you will do, number one, right? This is common sense. So this is obviously that you'll do. You will review the answer choices that you got incorrect. I'm writing it down as IC. I don't want to write it in full, right? So you will go through your incorrect questions, right? That is, I think, almost silly of me to say this, right? It's pretty stupid of me to say this. Obviously, the questions that you got wrong, you will review those, right? Or you did not attempt. Now, while reviewing these questions, the one thing that you should do is you should try to attempt them again, right? You should try to see whether you can before reading the explanation. The important thing is before reading the explanation, can you rationalize? Right? And then go through the explanation. The explanation has to be the last step, right? So you will review these questions and you will check. You will rationalize. You will try to adopt these. Which answer choice is incorrect? How do I eliminate option A? How do I eliminate C? That is something that you try before reading the explanation. So that is something that you do with the questions that were incorrect or you did not attempt. Now, the next thing with your correct answers. Now, this is the most curious part of VRC analysis. With your correct answers, please check once that did you actually correlate with the explanation given, right? Did you actually solve it, right? Based on those, did I actually solve it on the logic given, or did I employ a little bit of gut feeling? Right? You will be surprised. A lot of you say this, right? And a lot of you say one more thing. If you guys will agree with me on this or not, uh, your scores fluctuate a lot. A lot of you would feel that their scores go up and down a lot, right? Start checking when you score well. When you score well, check how many answers did you get right, which were kind of gut feel answers, right? So on the day your gut feel is great, you score well. On the day your gut feel betrays you, right? Gut feel is like essentially a lover, right? So it is going to at some point of time betray you. So when it does betray you, it's going to really take you down. So that is something that is going to happen. So you have this inconsistency. So with VARC mocks, with VARC section tests, please also check the correct answers. कहीं तुमने did you solve it by gut feel, तुक्का तो नहीं था. So that is something that you've got to do as well with VRC mocks. The third thing that you've got to do with VRC mocks is the correct questions are gone, the incorrect questions are gone. The third thing that you do is any new topic that you discover, right? Topics, what kind of topics I'm talking about, we discuss in the next 2 points. If you discover any new topic, any new piece of information, any new piece of knowledge, you discover new major thinkers, you discover new major concepts, you note those down, right? You start putting those down, you start noting those down. That's how you develop your comprehension. That's how you add to your comprehension, right? So that is something that you do. Satvik, your question, as a beginner, do we need to study any books for deep knowledge of RC genre at this point of time? Satvik, you're preparing for CAT 26 or 27. The answer changes according to that. So if you are preparing for CAT 2026, reading books at this stage, books are the best source of learning, right? There is, uh, I've been always been a firm believer in that, right? But at this stage, at this stage of preparation with 4 months to go, you might not necessarily have the time to read books. So that the time is a challenge, right? So the answer to the question, should you read books, is always, you should always read books. But in case the exam is just around the corner, then time is a limitation. You can't do that. It is practically not possible. So then you have to read articles, solve RCs. That's what you got to stick to, because you simply won't have the time to consume those books. Uh, Archisman, what to do if I get an unknown word? Have set a daily limit of words, right? How many of you write down words in notebooks? When I was preparing for CAT, which is now, it was when I was preparing for CAT as a student, I'll specify that. So, which was 20 years back. So that is how old I am. That was, yeah, 2006, 2026. Yeah, it's really 20 years now for since my first attempt. Uh, I had thick notebooks, registers, where I used to note down every word that I used to discover, or lots and lots of words, right? And what happened with me would have happened with quite a few of you as well. Initially, you start with a lot of energy when you start noting down those words. Right, I used to note down 30 words, 40 words. Remember, I had no online, there was no internet back then. There were no phones in 2006. So I used to carry a physical dictionary with me to look up the meanings of words, right? So now you guys don't need to do that. You guys don't even need a dictionary. You can just ask ChatGPT explain the word, right, to you. So I used to have a physical dictionary with me, and I initially started with a lot of gusto, with a lot of energy. I used to write 30, 40 new words a day. Everything was so new to me, right? I used to write a lot of words. And then gradually that kind of died, that passion, right? After I had, like, I realized I'd crossed 1,000 words, and I was beginning to forget the ones that I had written down at the start. So that started to happen. So then I just reduced that to 5 to 10 words a day, right? And that's it. After that, I used to start ignoring. Just try to infer in context, right? Because the human brain is not going to consume, is not going to remember more information than this. So 5 to 10 words a day, Archisman, write them down, ask ChatGPT, ask him to explain it in a nice way, ask for some mnemonic, right? So this is something that you guys can all do. Ask ChatGPT for a mnemonic, or you can even in your prompt say, give me a memory trick to remember the word, right? So that it'll just come up with something which will help you remember the word, right? Because our human mind, it needs hooks. Without hooks, it does not get captured in your brain. So you need, I was trying to draw a hook here, but my drawing is, as you can see, is pretty good. This is a hook that I have drawn, right? I have no idea what it is actually. So so we need hooks in our hooks, something to hook into our memory. So that is something that we've got to we've got to practically implement, and that is something that you can implement, that with this memory trick, mnemonics. Mnemonics are memory tricks, right? So you, with these memory tricks, you can remember those words. So that's something that you should do, Arjisman. You should 5 to 10 words a day, new words a day, and rest of them just try to infer meaning from the context. Don't note down more than that, because that is something that happens. You get an unknown word, ideally try to do it from the context. Let's do one thing. There is one passage today which has vocabulary as a challenge in it. So I picked, as I said, I picked up different kinds of passages. The last passage we'll do is I will give you a vocab challenge, right? So that is something that we'll do. Right. Next thing, guys, VRC prep is, this is my basic mantra that of VRC prep, that VRC prep is a process. It is not a one-time thing. It is not an event. You read, you analyze, you practice, you repeat. You read vocabulary, structural exposure, comfort with density. That's raw material that is there. You analyze where all the learning happens. Then you practice. You turn analysis into practice. You solve RCs. You solve questions, and you keep repeating this cycle. There is nothing outside of There is nothing outside of this particular. So I think that's a great resource here. I did that work for them, so it's a great resource. Uh, so uh, so read, practice, analyze, repeat, keep doing that. That will help you out a lot, right? You have to remember this. There will be bad days. There will be days where you will score very, very poorly in VARC. Even good students, you will have those dips, irrespective of whether your score goes up, whether your score goes down, right? The next day, you are supposed to repeat the same thing. The process does not change, right? The process of learning is not going to change. There is nothing that happens. So a lot of us, what we do is we get a little demotivated when we start getting things wrong, right? When we don't get scores, and especially right now in this season, in mock season. How many of you've taken mocks and you've felt slight little pangs of anxiety? If you've seen this from the corner somewhere in your psyche, self-doubt creeping in, that maybe I can't do it, maybe this is too difficult for me. And this could be with respect to any section. According to me, my personal opinion is, even though I am uh, teaching VARC, but my personal honest opinion is the craziest section in CAT is LRDI. Right? That is the absolute craziest section. VARC and QA are still because LRDI can break you in ways which are very unique. That section has ways of killing you that VARC and QA don't have those ways. So we'll focus on the process, and we will make sure that we keep doing, keep improving, keep sticking to it. That's something that we should be. Remember, this is the only thing that works. So read, analyze, practice, repeat, keep going through these cycles. It is going to click, right? So that is something that is going to happen. Yeah, LRDI is exceptionally, the cutoffs also then become correspondingly very low, right? It's just the three sections when you see that, the cutoffs. So I was saying one thing, while analyzing mocks, you should write down terms, right? So for example, uh, some of you guys would already know, I'm taking out the names of three terms. Just a quick yes or no, whether you knew all three terms or not. Singularity in AI, liberalism in economics, left wing versus right wing in politics. So yes or a no does in answer. If you knew all three terms, yes. If you did not know all three terms, no. Great, guys. Lots of you knew all these three terms. So really, really happy for that, right? Those of you who did not, there's nothing to worry. This is one more thing that you have to take forward from today onwards. Whenever you read, right? Whenever you read, you might read articles, you might remember when you solve RCs, you read the passage again, right? Or when you take mocks, when you take section tests, these are all places where you will read content, right? Whenever you read, wherever you find new terms, please note them down and keep a separate notebook for this. You will keep two notebooks, one for vocabulary, right? What do I mean by vocabulary? I will take the example of my favorite word, asinine. Asinine, what does it mean? It's a really simple word. I will kill you guys if you don't answer. Asinine, without looking up the dictionary, without asking ChatGPT or anything. Asinine. Asinine is someone who's stupid or silly, right? Now, I earlier spoke about memory tricks. So, what is a memory trick? So you remember asinine as nine asses, right? Nine times an ass, nine times a stupid person, nine times a donkey, right? So someone who's extremely stupid or foolish is an asinine person. This is a vocabulary word. Agreed? This is an adjective. So this is what we call vocabulary, right? Now, singularity in AI is not just a word, it's a concept, right? Singularity is that point in artificial intelligence which all these companies are aiming for. That is when AI will surpass human intelligence. We will achieve AGI, artificial general intelligence, right? The point in the time frame, that point when we achieve this, when AI becomes surpasses human intelligence, right? So right now AI is not at the same level as human intelligence, right? Human intelligence is far ahead of it, right? These companies, they keep claiming that we are very close to AGI. Obviously, why do these companies keep claiming they are very close to uh, machines being, there is another term which is called, right? Does anyone know of any other term to represent this singularity in AI? Can you express it in some other way? कोई और तरीके से same चीज को express? Whenever I say something, I know there are lots of people who've joined from the south of India. So whenever I say something in Hindi, I will always translate in English. So if it's, I'll keep it bilingual. So singularity के लिए, we also call it when AI will be sentient, right? When AI will be sentient, right? That's another term which is used. Then AI will have that intelligence when it becomes intelligent enough to take decisions, when it becomes intelligent enough to have human intelligence. So that point is singularity. Now, everyone is chasing that point, right? Now, singularity is scary. Imagine machines having human intelligence. If that point reaches, you don't know what is going to happen in the world, right? Next, liberalism in economics, free markets, minimal state role. So you have liberal open markets. You don't have uh, this again goes in the liberal versus protectionist debate. You have a protectionist economy, you have a liberal economy, left wing versus right wing politics. Who is left wing in India, right wing in India? Right. This is something everyone should know. There are two wings of politics, left and right wing. And along this, you have all the different political parties. You have the complete spectrum where you can put all different parties, for even those from UK, from US, Indian parties. These are wings of politics, right? And these two wings of politics have different meanings, different in terms of what do they imply, right? So these are terms that you have, right? Who brought liberalism in India? Who brought liberalization and in which year? Quick GK question. Who brought liberalization? 1991. Who brought it? PV Narasimha Rao was the prime minister. Manmohan Singh was the finance minister. Right. That is when we had liberalization. Right. Our economy was liberalized. It was open to foreign investments. Money came into the system. We really needed that investment at that point of time. Right. So these are terms or concepts. From today onwards, whenever you find these terms or concepts, start noting these down. Right. You will find, and you will find also the names of people at times who've given these terms or concepts. Right. Note down those names. Familiarity with these, right? What does it do? Familiarity with these, it just makes you familiar with content, right? Just helps you understand more. So the basic funda is, the more you know about this world, the better is your comprehension. It is the simplest possible correlation. The more things you know about this world, the more you understand about this world, the better is your comprehension. That is one basic rule which is applicable for comprehension. So we'll try to increase your knowledge as well. So expand your knowledge base. For this, one thing that you can do is you can target particular topics at particular times. So target philosophy for a couple of weeks, target politics for a couple of weeks, target economics, target business. Try to learn terms from these areas. Try to do that, right? Uh, there is also an RCN terms free section on wordpandit.com that I've built, where we have a glossary of terms for free, right? That is also something that you can, those of you who want to access that, just drop me a WhatsApp message after the class and I'll send you the link for that section, right? So that is also something that you can do. So these are the things that you've got to keep in mind. These were, remember, I said 5 theory pointers. So quickly recapping those: one, you will read for structure. You will not just read for content. We will practically apply and see this. How does this happen? Right? Second, if you understood the passage but still got it wrong, that is something that happens with a lot of people. We accept that, but we'll try to fix it today. Third, there are traps in answer choices. These traps you should be careful of. You should try to identify them and you should try to eliminate answer choices based on that. Fourth, always remember VARC prep is a process. Solving Parsi passages for 1 week and then not seeing any improvement and then quitting, that is not going to resolve anything, right? That means you've quit the process. You cannot let go of the process. Don't have expectation. Thoda sa, this is almost like spiritual or meditation ki aapko, you have to do this without expectation. If you have expectations, you will struggle, right? Next thing is obviously you expand your knowledge base. So 5 pointers for you to get started with reading comprehensions, 5 things that you should keep in mind or 5 things that you should apply. So this was all the theory that we have for today, right? I'll head over to the first passage now. You guys can take a quick sip of water if you want to, and if you want to have some water, if you whatever you want to have a beverage or something, so you can do that. Then I will shift to a passage. Now how will we go about this particular passage? I'll just scroll it. Right, this one is slightly long. So once you've read till here, many more, just mention done in the comments. I will scroll it further. Right. So once you're done, let me just put it. Yeah. So once you're done till here, then I'll scroll it further, and then you solve the questions and then we discuss it. Right. But remember one thing: what is it that you're going to do while reading this passage? Will you read only the sentences and the content, or will you read for structure? You will read for structure. How does each paragraph contribute to the passage? What is the spine of the passage? What is the passage revolving around? You will try to identify those things. Because unless and until you do this practically, it is whatever I have said is all gyan. It is all gas. It is completely worthless if you don't do it, if you don't apply it in practice. So let's do that. So I'll put myself on mute now. Once you are done, I'll scroll forward. Chalo guys, let's get started. Everyone has read the passage, complete passage. This is the complete passage. It finishes on emerged. You should have read it by now, right? Fine. Giving you another minute, Abhijit. Okay. Waiting for you guys 2 more minutes. Great, guys. Solve the questions now. 4 questions for the passage. Sure, Dhruv. I'll add the recording. Answers, guys. Give the answers for all 4 questions, ek saath. I have a feeling this is going to be fun. Are you guys also getting that feeling when trying to find the answers? Fourth, C or D. Okay. A, B, B, C, Shashank. Okay. Everybody else answers quickly, guys. CBBA. Actually, I'll give you guys a little insight, right? So this was an RC that I had prepared some time back. I've taken it in one or two live sessions previously. I don't remember the year now, right? So today I went ahead and changed the answer choices. I saw all the passages. I was like, नहीं यार मजा नहीं आ रहा. थोड़ा थोड़ा सा fun introduce करते हैं. Yeah, it's simple to read. It's fun to read, right? There is, and in terms of language, I think you guys can't say that uh, the language is difficult. There is no vocabulary challenge in any of the answer choices as well, right? Vocab is not the issue here. Agreed? This is like based on pure logic and understanding. So, guys, I'll give you the answers. Should I give you the answers first or should I explain the passage first? I'll give you the answers. You can correlate, right? You can check your answers. C, B, B, C, right? C, B, B, and C, right? The correct answers in this case. So this is something that we will be doing, right? This is something that we'll be discussing. We'll quickly go through the passage because I want to explain to you a couple of things and how you should have read this passage. So we will apply our, those of you who've attended a few sessions with me, we'll apply our script method of reading. I'll apply it to you, apply it in front of you guys. So those of you for whom this is the first session, you also understand it, right? So when we read this passage, you'll actually realize that there is actually a lot of information which is actually not driving meaning in these paragraphs. There are some very important things being said, which is right, but there is also a lot of extra stuff which actually does not impact our meaning or questions at all, right? Now, first thing he says is mathematics is mysterious. We will discuss this again, right? We'll discuss it in question number 1 because the nature of this statement is very important for us. It decides what is the correct answer. So mathematics is mysterious. I don't just mean that it's difficult, unresolved mathematical questions. I mean instead mathematics as a subject, as an activity is mysterious. So he's labeling mathematics as a subject, as an activity as mysterious. So if I apply my strip method of reading, this is not really required. Agreed. Our familiarity with elementary mathematics lets us lose sight of this. Again, just something which is describing this particular line. This is probably a good thing most of the time. Relying on the nature of mathematics is no aid to mathematical problem solving. But doing mathematics is one thing. Understanding the nature of mathematics is another thing. So I just learn these two important parts, right? The first task is mathematical. The second is philosophical, right? So doing mathematics is one thing. Understanding the nature of mathematics is other. The first is mathematical. This is the second part is philosophical in nature, right? Now, how many of you know this? Just a general question to you guys, because it just struck me while reading this paragraph, just came to my mind that how many of you know that there is generally a debate between mathematicians and physicists? They fight with each other whose subject is more important. Mathematicians and physicists, people in physics. right? Big Bang Theory taught us this. So if you watched Big Bang Theory, so this is a debate that you would have been made aware of, right? Because mathematicians say that physicists, so I think this is one of Feynman's, I'm not sure who said it, maybe Feynman said it, I have to confirm that who said this, right? That if you delete all of mathematics, physicists claim that they will come back with, they will have their physics in place in 1 week. Remove all the mathematics that we know of this world, physics will actually physics will originate with physics will be able to come up with its theories, right? That's what physicists claim. Mathematicians on the other hand, they claim that without mathematics physics cannot exist, right? That mathematics is the backbone, right? Now, and this is a very very curious thing which you should think after. I'm leaving you with a thought exercise. What is the difference between, and I'm taking 4 subjects, and this is absolutely Hoshang philosophy of science, right? There are 4 subjects I'm taking names of: mathematics, biology, chemistry, and physics. Just these 4 subjects, right? What is the difference between, can I say biology, chemistry, and physics actually are related to each other while discussing the philosophical side? I can club them as one. And then against them, you have mathematics. The difference between these subjects, can you spot? This one very interesting, and it's referred to in the passage as well. With physics, chemistry, biology, you can actually have experimental evidence, right? You have evidence, you can touch those things, you can apply those theories, and you can do it, right? Now, where do you see mathematics? So, is mathematics, for example, this computer and this setup that I'm using, it is all governed by the laws of physics, whatever I'm using, right? And material laws of material, etc., all those things, right? But the mathematics behind this, what does it become? So that is a very important question. That what is, yeah, Newton made calculus to answer physics, language for science. So this is what this passage is about. I think if I remember correctly, I took this from Aeon, right? This is an Aeon essay. So now he goes in the second paragraph. Why is mathematics mysterious? Because it is difficult to see how mathematics fits into our world. Important line. So this is important. Mathematics concerns specific truths and falsehoods. It is true 1 plus 1 is 2. It is false 1 plus 1 is 3. Example not needed. It is also true that there is an empty set, a set of things with nothing in it. False that some members are sets of themselves. Another example which is given. These are truths and falsehoods in arithmetic, set theory. Again, if you look at it, he's just repeating the same thing. This is something that you have to be very careful of while reading. He's literally repeating himself. These are truths and falsehoods in arithmetic and set theory, which are branches of pure mathematics. He has added no new value here, no new information. He's still saying the same thing, that it has truths and falsehoods, right? There are some things which are true. 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus 1 is not 3. That is false. True and false exists, right? So that's all he said in this particular part till now. Pure mathematics contrasts with applied mathematics. This is the second important pointer which comes. As in applied to the physical world, there are questions about how mathematics manages to apply in a world full of unexpected ways it does. The physicist, this guy famously said that mathematics was unreasonably effective at applying to the world. Again, repetition, just explaining it further. However, the puzzle I am raising here is even more basic. The most fundamental aspects of pure mathematics itself. So the concern is that is based on the pure on the basic fundamental aspects of pure mathematics itself. From the second paragraph, important information: why is mathematics mysterious? Difficult to see how it fits into our picture of the world. It has truths and falsehoods. There is pure mathematics. It is different from applied mathematics. Physicist said something which I don't need to remember. If there is a question, I'll come back to it. Otherwise, I don't need to recall this, right? But he is concerned with the most fundamental aspects of pure mathematics. That is what he's concerned with. So our first 2 paragraphs, this is what you take away from it. This is what you remember from it. Everything else is stripped out of it. I don't need to remember these examples. I don't need to read these. I don't need to put a lot of focus. The Truths of pure mathematics are unlike ordinary truths. Important thing. For instance, pure mathematical truths are eternal, right? They have always been and always will be true. It was true that Big Bang was that it was true at the Big Bang 1 + 1 was true. It will still be true in trillion years. So this is just an example. They are also necessary. Second thing that I learned. So from this paragraph, we will learn pure mathematical laws are eternal. They are necessary. I'm writing it down as N. They matter. They would remain same no matter what is the state of the world. In a world with no humans, it would still be 1 + 1 = 2. And they are objective. The third thing is they are objective. They do not depend on anyone's whims, wishes, or will. If we encounter Martians and they say that 1 + 1 is 3, we will know that we are failing to communicate with them or that Martians are liars, right? So they are necessary. They are eternal, right? They are necessary and they are objective in nature. What is the difference between objective and subjective, guys? Good time to introduce that difference between objective and subjective. And then I'll ask you a trick question. So objective is something which is free from any bias, purely based on the facts. There is no opinion added to it. That is being objective. Subjective is it can include my personal opinion, it can include my personal biases, right? So objective is which just sticks to the facts. Subjective is something which has bias included in it. Now, in this particular case, what is the tone of the author of the passage? Subjective or objective? What is the tone of the author of the passage? Because these are two tones as well, objective and subjective, right? Let me also put it in another way. Uh, let me Can I also say that with respect to tones, I can do one little also thought exercise, which all of you can do from today onwards with every passage. You can divide the passage into positive, negative, neutral, right? Whether the author is positive in the passage about something, whether he is neutral or whether he is negative, we can do that. So positive, negative, neutral answer in this case. First step, we'll take that as step one. Positive, negative, neutral way. Remember, he's saying mathematics is mysterious, right? In this particular case, I can't decide whether that mysterious is a good thing or a bad thing, right? I can't really decide that. So this goes in that set of being neutral, right? So there is neutrality in this particular case. But this passage also gives you a rare exception, right? Will give you a rare exception in terms of analysis. Now coming to the tone of the passage. What is the tone of the author of the passage in this case? All of you jumped and said objective. Who is going to justify it? Anyone has any other answer? Objective and subjective. What is the tone in this particular case? Imagine that would actually make a good question in this case. Everyone answers. I've seen a lot of people have already answered. ठीक है. Math is undeniably true. Just like 1 + 1, you cannot add your own opinion. Okay, agreed. Anyone has any other answer for tone? There are only two options, objective or subjective. Anyone who thinks this is subjective? The tone of the author of the passage. Any one of you who thinks that. Subjective in the application of. मैंने the question पूछा. I'm asking you as a question. You can add this as the fifth question of this passage. This has only two options, objective, subjective. चलो इसको फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन के साथ करते हैं. Right, let's do this with question number 1. We will hold on to this whether this is objective or subjective. Right, we'll hold on to this. We'll do it with the first question. So now he's from this paragraph we learn the important things that we learn is eternal, neutral, and objective. That is something that we learn from this particular passage. It's sorry, eternal, necessary, and objective. These are things that we learn. Crucially, mathematics also concerns mathematical objects. These objects. These objects are non-physical. So the next point I learn is they are mathematical objects. These are non-physical in nature. They are not a part of physical reality that way bodies, tables, planets are. If you think about it, this is all extra content which can go away. I know he's already defined non-physical. Nobody has ever tripped over a number. You don't see one in a telescope. No, our mathematical objects are not there in any sense of the term. So all of this, right, can be cut out. He's just repeating the same thing. He's giving examples of how they are uh, non-physical. The thing that we take out from this paragraph is that they are actually non-physical. They don't seem to be here. They don't, etc., etc. Yet somehow, some way, we know mathematical truths with certainty. So we know them with certainty, even though they are non-physical in nature, right? So that is what we learn. So if you look at these 4 paragraphs, if you condense these 4 paragraphs, mathematics is mysterious, right? Mathematics is one thing, that is a mathematical task. Nature of it is philosophical when if you try to understand its nature. Why is mathematics mysterious? Difficult to see how it fits into our picture. It has specific truths, falsehoods. Pure mathematics is different than applied mathematics. It is eternal, it is necessary, it is objective mathematics, and then there are mathematical objects which are non-physical, right? So that's how you can summarize this. That's the kind of mental outline you can build for yourself while reading passages. That is what you can strip down a passage to. This is essentially all the passage stands for. This is what stripping down a passage is, reducing it to just these bare minimum 5-6 sentences. Clearly, our mathematical knowledge comes to us in special ways. No experiments are performed. So this is our difference with other sciences, biology, physics, chemistry, right? No data catalog, no observations based. Those are empirical subjects. Those have this data catalogs. Most of our usual methods of finding things out are absent. Instead, mathematical knowledge comes by rigorous proofs, axioms like one is a number, all right angles are the same. So mathematical knowledge comes from in special place. It comes from rigorous logical proofs. These features make mathematics mysterious. Our challenge is to fit mathematics into a reasonable account of the world. Only then will we truly understand mathematics philosophically. The challenge has obsessed some of the greatest mathematicians and philosophers, but no clear answer has yet emerged. So what we want to do is we want to fit mathematics into a reasonable account of the world. Reasonable account, a reasonable definition of the world. It should fit the world. We've tried this, but we've not been able to achieve it. There is no clear answer which has been achieved before this, right? So this is what he says in the last paragraph. So this brings us to an end to this paragraph. Fascinating to read, good to read, and pretty interesting content, right? All of you would agree with me that this was an interesting passage to read in terms of content, pure content. And also you would agree that you might not have thought of mathematics in this way previously, that this is also a problem that exists with mathematics, right? First question, and we will do tone as well with it. How is the structure and organization of the passage best described? An introduction, a claim, an assertion, and introduction. What is an assertion? So we break down these options into parts, right? So this is the first part of the option: introduction, claim, assertion, introduction. Agreed? I need to decide this. Assertion is not a hypothesis. Assertion. Yes, assertion is a synonym for claim actually. When you make a claim, you assert something. So assertion is making a claim. So these two are actually similar. So you can replace this with claim, right? Followed by a set of supporting facts and conclusion, right? Now, first thing that I've got to decide is whether this is an introduction or whether this is an assertion. What do you think this passage, this thing is in the passage, guys? when you were describing the structure of the passage? Is it a claim or is it an introduction? The passage actually starts with an assertion and he makes it again and again. Mathematics is mysterious, right? And he actually goes on to define it. He's not saying it is difficult, it is a subject which is mysterious, right? And then he again asks, why is this mysterious? So now can I say this, that this is a claim which is being made by the author of the passage? Another thing that will help you identify that this is a claim. Mathematics is mysterious, right? So if I just write it down as this, mathematics is mysterious. Is this a written law somewhere? Is this an axiom? Is this a written law or axiom that mathematics is mysterious? The moment we have yes or no in this case, we've already headed into that category. This is the author's viewpoint, right? There might be some people in the world who will think mathematics is not mysterious, it is just numbers. Agreed? So now this is a claim which is being made by the author of the passage. He is saying mathematics is mysterious. Agreed? Who? Let me ask you this in another word, in another way. Who is saying mathematics is mysterious? The author is saying, he's claiming this. So this is a claim being made by the author of the passage. Now this helps us rule out two answer choices, right? Introduction followed by a detailed explanation and concluding thoughts. Remember, one particular thing that you've got to remember in this case is that if we did not have option number C, then A would have become a very good option choice, right? It would have become a good option choice. You will in exams, you will have these cases where two options are close to each other. In this case, A and C are very close to each other. It's not that they are not close to each other. It's just that in C, we have a more appropriate answer, right? So between an introduction and an assertion, this is an assertion that the author has made, is followed by a set of supporting facts and conclusion. Which is the conclusion? This is his conclusion. He's actually concluded the passage as well, right? Structurally, this is where he ends it, that no clear answer has emerged, right? So there is an assertion being made. It is being followed by supporting facts. Remember, followed by detailed explanations by supporting facts. These are synonymous in nature. Concluding thoughts, conclusion. These are also synonymous in nature. So the answer choices are running parallel. Or you had to decide was whether it is an introduction or an assertion. I think Aryan got it right, and I saw one more student who'd gotten it right, who'd gotten it as C. A couple of you had gotten it as C. Most of you, you took it as you took it either A or D, right? So now, do you guys understand how important it was to identify the nature of the sentence in this particular case? Our understanding of what the author does, meaning though you understood mathematics is mysterious, right? A claim is followed by a sequential set of facts and evidence related to mathematics. Is it a sequential set of facts? What would be a sequential set of facts? Are they in a predefined order? Is this evidence and sequential set of facts any such order that this happens after this happens after this? That is not happening in the passage. Just this one error which has been introduced in the option. Got it, Hoshang? There is nothing sequential about it. Which brings us to the second question. Also the tone. Now, what is the tone, guys? Objective or subjective? What is the tone according to you? This is subjective in this case because this is the view of the author. Remember, I said one thing at the start of the session, and at that point of time, it would have felt like, why is this fat bald man saying so? Right? I told you, read for structure, right? Reading for content. When you read for content, you are reading for mathematics is mysterious. Iska meaning kya hai? When you are reading for structure, you ask, why did he write this? So what was the function that this sentence is playing? What is the role that it is playing? So your change from this perspective, it changes your answer. So in this particular case, this is actually a subjective passage. This is the author's view. It's not decided that mathematics is mysterious. There is no such universal truth, right? So this is subjective, this passage, which brings us to question number 2. The correct answer is option number B, which is the line. There is a specific line which helps you find option number B, right? The first task is mathematical, the second task philosophical, right? Now, in this particular passage, what is he discussing? Is he discussing the philosophical part or is he discussing the mathematical part of maths? What is he discussing in this passage? He is discussing the philosophical parts of maths, right? Hence, philosophy comes first in this particular case, wins over mathematics. Scholar, could it be scholar also instead of philosopher? Why not a scholar? Scholar violates our scope trap. Agreed? So this is an example of a scope trap. Would you guys agree? Yeah, everyone is a scholar in the world. Philosophy वाले भी scholar हैं. सब type के scholar हैं ना. Which scholar are we referring to? We've just expanded the scope to be too big, too broad. We've gone too far and wide. Great, guys. Third question. How many of you missed this incorrect? Which one of the following is incorrect? Archisman, he can be. But remember one thing with author profession questions, right? What does the question say? Question says, what is the most likely profession of the author of the passage? Can I say this? Can you... we can say this. Could I have written this passage? I'm a VARC teacher. Could I have written this passage? Yes or no? I'm a VARC teacher. The actual answer is I could have written it. फैक्ट अगर तुम देखो तो मैं लिख तो सकता हूं ना, अच्छा लिखूं बुरा लिखूं, गुड और बैड इज सेपरेट, बट आई कैन राइट ऑन दिस टॉपिक. सो एनीवन कैन राइट ऑन एनीथिंग इन द वर्ल्ड. There is no such, there is no restriction. Whenever you have these author profession questions, right, we go by what is the content in the passage, right? So here the content in the passage was mathematics and philosophy. That is why we picked the first two options. We ruled out this. Now, in the given passage, what is it that he's placing primary, Archisman? He's placing philosophy first, mathematics later, right? In the given passage, that is his preference order. So going by that, what is it that we select? We select option number B. That is how you arrive at the answer. It's not about saying whether he could be a mathematician and a philosopher. He could be, he's both. But first and later is basically asking you the sequence of flow of information in the passage. How does the passage go about it? So third question, you guys would have missed the incorrect wala part. Some of you would have missed. Archana missed it. I think, yeah, Archana missed. So what does he say about Martians? What does this line mean? If we encounter Martians and they say that 1 + 1 3, we will know that they are failing to communicate with them. So either we are not able to communicate with them, right? Either their communication is a problem, or in their language 1 + 1 is 3, right? Which makes it, in terms of mathematics, this fact can't change, or the fact that they are lying, because this truth cannot change. It is objective in nature, right? It cannot, different people cannot have different views of it, right? Option number B, if Martians disagreed with our mathematical truths, it would indicate that mathematical truths are subjective and vary between species. Can this be an inference which can be derived from the passage? Can mathematical truths be subjective? Mathematical truths cannot be allowed to be subjectives. So this is actually incorrect. Are they eternal? Yes, they do not change over time. Are they non-physical? Yes, they are non-physical and distinct in nature. The understanding of mathematical truths doesn't involve data collection or observation in a typical sense. Yes, in the last passage he says it doesn't. So A, C, D are all correct as per the passage. Option number B is the one where the mistake is committed. Which brings us to another type of question. On purpose, for the first is a structure question, the second is a profession question, the third is an inference question, fourth is a parallel situation question. I've done this on purpose, right? Different types of questions. The question type itself is changing. So which out of these confused you guys in the fourth question? What is it that we know with mathematics? It is eternal, it is necessary, it is objective, right? Ajahshang, all confusing. A language that is always, what is the problem with option number one? Option number A, and that's its underlying structure and meaning is neither subjective nor fluid. This part is correct, but its vocabulary develops with time. So if its vocabulary is developing with time, that means that language is changing with time. Bhushang, can we allow it to change with time? Does mathematics change with time? Mathematical truths remain the same. They are eternal in nature. Yeah, but the truth cannot change, right? So this gets ruled out. A painting that retains its colors and patterns irrespective of the viewer. So again, this is okay, but its meaning depends on how it is understood. So this means paintings are subjective in nature. Can mathematics be subjective? No, it cannot be subjective, right? See a story whose meaning, structure, and form remains the same irrespective of the generation in which it is set. So this perfectly fits because irrespective of the generation in which the story is set, its meaning, structure, form always remain the same. It is eternal, it is objective, it is a constant. D, a musical note that essentially remains the same in notation and representation, but sounds different based on the instruments it is played on. So again, there is a difference which has been introduced. We cannot have any difference. That's it. It's simple as that. These three answer choices make a common mistake of introducing a difference, right? There's something different is happening. Hence, option number C. Good guys. चलो पैसेज नंबर 2 करें. Abhijit, again, sounds different based on the instruments it is played on. Does mathematics change in different contexts? So mathematics of this person is this, mathematics of that person is something else, or mathematics in this case is this, in another case it is different. That does not happen. Mathematics remains the same. So for example, mathematics in a notebook and mathematics on a blackboard, they can't change. It will remain the same, right? The instrument, whatever it changes, it can't change. So that is why it can't be D. Great guys. Second wala, the passage is small, so you can quickly read it. Isme we will jump to the question straight. I don't think I need to explain this, but Everyone has read? Should I shift to the questions or wait another minute? So let's head over to the questions now. Sure. Back to the questions. Question number one is the pain point, right? Most of you have gotten DCC, DCC, DCC as well. So one and two are problematic, and okay, we've got different answers actually for all questions. Some differences, right? First thing that we understand, I'll not read this line by line. Fair people, I don't need to read this line by line, right? the passage? So this he gives a statement, and then basically the operative part of this passage, which is the important line. Aristotle is saying that what is required for happiness is a complete life, which obviously no young person has while he's still young. This line is very important. He's clearly saying that no young person has this, right? So no young person has this. Now, how many of you have heard of this rule in verbal, where if you've seen it in reels, shorts, videos, YouTube, where they say that don't pick extreme answer choices? You should have heard this, that don't pick extreme things, where they say always, none, never, right? So that is something which is true, that is applicable. But there is one case where that fails. If the passage itself states, so here the passage itself has stated that no person has this. Agreed? The passage is pretty extreme. There is no scope for a young person having it. He does not have it under any situation and under any condition, right? So he does not have it, right? He refers to this story between one thing that I want to share with you guys for sure before we go to the analysis. While reading the passage, the moment I see this, right, when you just scan the passage, just see the lines, right, and you see names such as this Croesus and Solon, right? Now these are King of Lydia, Croesus, Solon, Herodotus. These are words which trouble us, right? These are not easy to spell. These are not easy to remember. So I immediately replace this with a C and an S in my mind. So right through this paragraph, I read it as CNS, 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 CNS. C said this, S said this, C said this, S said this, right? So I substitute. So that is also something that you guys can do while reading. It kind of helps a lot, right? So I read it like this only, where wherever I find names of people, I just substitute C, S, A, B. It makes it a lot far more simpler, right? And then he goes on to give this, right? And he tells about this particular example, where he gives this example of this full life, right? And this full life is of, he asks him who's the happiest, Tellus of Athens. Why do you consider him to be happiest? This is the important part. First, because his country was flourishing, his sons were good, beautiful, he lived uh this he further, after a life spent in people, took his end was glorious. So he lived a full life, right? So that was his basic take, right? uh but the reason is in the first paragraph. It says, a young boy called happy, then proceeds to give the reason. A boy is not happy owing to his age. Boys are happy, are being congratulated by the reasons of the hopes we have for them. For there is required not only complete virtue but a complete life, since many changes occur in life. Yeah, the Hushang, when boys are called happy, they are actually not happy. We are calling them happy because we have hope for them. This is what they are going to achieve in their lives, right? Now, question number one, he says, Aristotle's perspective on happiness suggests that, right? Answers for this are A, C, B. In this particular case, answers are A, C, B. Aristotle's perspective on happiness suggests that youth is inherently incapable of true happiness, right? Remember, this is the one case where they directly say there is no happiness possible, right? Happiness in youth is transient and dependent on virtues. No, it is not. It is not possible. It is not dependent. It is not transient. Transient is something which comes and goes away. Is happiness in youth transient? No, it is not. You need to live the full life. Unless and until you've lived the full life, you can't have happiness, right? Progeny and their well-being are essential for a young person's happiness. This is easy to rule out. I think no one said C for question number one. Does not make any sense. Easiest. D, happiness is a complex amalgamation of factors that youth has yet to fulfill. Option number D. Why is option number D incorrect? Progeny is a kid, is your child. So one's kids are one's progenies. So it's a pretty silly option that way. Option number D. is it an amalgamation of factors that the youth is yet to fulfill? Or is it something that the youth can actually never fulfill? It is incapable, right? Youth cannot achieve it. Hence, ruled out. Answer option number A. So this is one of those rare cases where an extreme answer choice is the correct answer. This is the most extreme answer choice in this set. Sir, if you go by what the story is, then progeny, all these factors keep from happiness. The question क्या पूछ रहा है Hartika? Don't forget the question. The question is asking what is Aristotle's perspective? Aristotle's perspective is given here clearly. In other words, what Aristotle is saying is this. He's actually spelled it out for us. And then now we are being asked, what is his perspective? His perspective is that no young person can have while he's still young. Why can't you have it? Because it's logically impossible. You are young, you can't have it. Right? That is the reason. You cannot have a complete life because you are young. Your life is not complete. So the reason is not having kids, not having anything else. Now let's extend this further. What does he mean by complete life? When he gives this examples of Tellus of Athens, what does he mean by complete life? Can I say this? Aristotle says you need a complete life, not possible for young. I'm writing it as NPY, right? And what does the example of Tellus of Athens tell us about complete life? You should have had the full set of experiences. You should have gone through the ups and downs of life. You should have seen it from all shades. And in this particular case, Tellus of Athens achieved everything. He saw every perspective. He saw every lived in all these things that he saw, etc., etc., etc. So he gives him, that is why he has a complete life. That is the reason for him having a complete life, right? Hence, Aristotle's perspective on happiness is the youth is inherently capable of true happiness. Happiness is not an amalgamation of factors that youth has yet to fulfill. In this particular case, is the passage about happiness? Hoshan? Or is it about the fact that happiness cannot be achieved by youth? So the point is, at the end of the day, but how would it be Aristotle's perspective on happiness? The question is very simply, in this particular case, we need to answer that what is Aristotle's perspective? When we say happiness is a complex amalgamation of factors that youth has yet to fulfill, right? So now what is this complex amalgamation we are talking about? Which are these factors that we are talking about? What is this complex amalgamation? Where does this come from? It just adds new layers which are not there in the passage. You are saying that, right? In your understanding, kids, progeny, having this, that is a complex amalgamation. What if that is not? So this is introducing things which are not given in his perspective. Aristotle's perspective was you cannot achieve happiness because you've not had a complete life. Understood, everyone? Any doubts in this? Question number 2. Why does the author include the story of Croesus and Solon immediately after quoting Aristotle? Why does he offer this? Why does he add this? To translate Aristotle's abstract philosophical claim into a concrete illustrative narrative example, right? So he's giving an example for it. Option number B is incorrect. Is it a contrasting example? It's not a contrasting example, does not go outside, does not go in the opposite direction. Is it historical proof? Is this proof of something that happened? Are we searching for proofs in this case? We are not searching for any proof, right? There is no proof. So it has to be A or C. To extend Aristotle's argument by introducing a new additional criteria. Is this introducing a new additional criteria, or is it just building on what was already said? It is building on what was already said. It's an example of what was said, right? Structurally speaking, Aristotle's view was given, and then this particular thing is just serving as an example of what Aristotle said, right? It's not introducing something new. Hence, option number C. Third, I think everyone got correct B. Third, anyone has doubts in question number 3? All of you said B for question number 3. Croesus' indignant reaction when Solon names Tellus rather than himself most strongly suggests that A. believes Solon is secretly envious of his wealth and power, right? So why does C get angry with S, right? When he says this, right? What is the reason for his anger, right? His anger was because of the fact that he assumed he will say Croesus is the most happiest person. He expected him to be named. And when his name did not come, he felt let down by it. Why did he expect that he should be named? Why should Croesus be called the happiest person? Because he has these visible signs of prosperity and worldly success, right? So he had assumed this. So Croesus assumed this. I have visibility, I have worldly success. Why are you not calling me it, right? He did not, it's not because Solon is secretly envious of his wealth and power. He does not, does he doubt the intentions of Solon? That Solon ही घटिया था आदमी. सोलन को जेलेसी थी, वो तो नहीं है. Feels that Solon has failed to appreciate the full complexity of his personal achievements. Does he feel that Solon misunderstood him? No, there is no misunderstanding as well, right? Suspects Solon holds private citizens in higher regard than kings out of political bias. There is no mention of any political bias, right? What was this about? This was the comparison is not between kings and private citizens. That comparison is not there, right? It's whether you have the full experience in life or not. And just having wealth and prosperity does not imply that you have the full experience. So option number D ruled out. Correct answer, option number B. थके तो नहीं guys? I hope you guys are not tired. One more passage to go, 3 short questions. कंप्लीट कर देते हैं एक्सरसाइज. चलो, this is the third paragraph. One thing, did you see that this passage number 2 was written in a different style to passage number 1? Satvik, you are referring to passage 2? First question, option D, gives complete context of paragraph. Here, what is this complex amalgamation of factors? There is no reference to this in the passage, right? So there is no complex amalgamation of factors that the youth has yet to fulfill, right? It's about having a complete life. So he's saying happiness is when you achieve happiness, when you have a complete life. Problem is youth does not have a complete life. Youth's life is incomplete by definition. Passage number 3, the third passage that we arrive at. What was the tone for the second passage? What would be the tone for this passage? Author's tone. Neutral is agreed. A, it is neutral, neither positive nor negative. Now, this is a good question as well, Abhay. Uh, does the author at any given point of time give his perspective? Author's tone is not negative, Shashank. There is, oh, sorry, neutral. Yeah. Sorry, I read it as negative. So, so the author has not given any opinion. He's just stating that Aristotle said this, and this is what Aristotle meant. Yes, Abhay, he is just describing, right? So, in other words, if I'll give you a parallel example. If I went to Shimla and described to you what the scene was, right? You will be clearly able to say that that is a description when I tell you what I experienced on my journey to Shimla, right? Now, in this particular case, this is also equivalent to that. He is describing, like just that he's describing the views of Aristotle on happiness. The author's tone is what, right? The author here is being descriptive about it. Understood, everyone? Great. This is the third paragraph, right? This is a short third passage which I've taken from one of my favorite authors, Bachchi Karkaria. She's very good for if you want to learn new words every day, if you want to learn new words, right? Not every day she posts one article a week on Times of India. You have lots of articles of her available to read. So she generally posts satire, and there are lots of complicated words that she uses. So this is the one passage where you will have vocabulary as a challenge. So for you guys, I've done one thing. I have put in the meanings of these words in brackets, right? So you read this, but you read this with meanings. This will make it easier for you to understand. This also showcases the importance of having good vocabulary. Vocabulary works. It's not like vocabulary is a very, yeah, Hushan, can show the original. Which one do you want to read? Original or the red yellow one? Annotated. चलो ओरिजिनल पढ़ लो. Read everyone? Done. These are the meanings of the words, right? इसको फटाफट like read it in 1 minute. You can read this version in 1 minute. This is something that you guys can do when you find a tough passage which uses a lot of very difficult vocabulary. And this, each one of you at an individual level, you should be doing this. Just copy paste that text and tell chat GPT to annotate those tough words to give their meanings within brackets, right? This way. So while reading, you keep reading the meanings as well and you read with the flow. So those of you who struggle with vocabulary a lot, this is something that you can use as a shortcut to deal with this, right? This is how you improve. I've Archana written it down. All of you use ChatGPT, right? This question has got nothing to do with the class. This is about user behavior. Okay, great. Did you guys understand the passage or you found it irritating to use? Sorry, irritating to read. Middle two paragraphs are boring. After two reads, it was okay. Don't definitely get the main idea accurately. Okay. Chalo. Quickly, three questions. Quickly, the three questions, and then we'll discuss the passage and the questions. Creation of new words. When you coin a new word, Neo is for new. Logos, LOG or LOGOS is for words. Yeah, I can share this PDF as well. CVD, BBD, CVB, DVD. Okay. So the passage is CDB. The passage is actually, if you look at it, it's written in a lighter tone, right? It's not meant to be taken seriously. So there is no such thing. So when she says something like, what a recharging point this would be for the burgeoning North American Parsi and Iranian community. Now the Parsi community is not growing and flourishing, is not really burgeoning, right? All of you know about Parsis in India. Parsis, we have a specific Parsi community. Most of them live in Bombay. But as a community, they've been shrinking. Yeah, they've been shrinking. And also the intercaste marriage is not allowed, right? So if a Parsi girl marries a non-Parsi, then the child becomes non-Parsi. So all those things have happened. So the numbers have dwindled a lot, right? So the author is actually just pointing out this fact that this this diaspora of these people who originated, right? Uh, Now these are all people who are of this Parsi origin and Parsi and Iranian origin. Parsis came from Iran, right? So these people, what do? They have these fire temples, right? So Zoroastrian is their religion, right? And uh, it's one religion I've not really studied in a lot of detail, right? So for example, in any one of us, we would have studied some basics of Christianity, some basics of Islam, some basics of Hinduism, but uh, Zoroastrianism is not something that we study a lot or we mention frequently. So they have this religion and they have fire gong temples. So in their temples, they have a gong, they have this place where the fire is always burning. So they call them fire gong temples, right? So now they've in Houston, there is one that's been made. Then there is another sacred place which has been made in London's Hounslow by these different organizations. What have these places become? This is the central point the author is trying to say. These places have become kind of a meeting spot for this diaspora, right? So this diaspora, does a diaspora ever want to celebrate independence from its root? So diaspora hota kya hai? The people who go away from the original homeland. So like for example, we have the Gujarati diaspora, Punjabi diaspora in America, in Canada, etc., etc. And it's a very funny situation if you think about it. Do they want to celebrate independence? Indians who go to America, they want to be American and Indian at the same time. Agreed? You want to be American and Indian at the same time. So that's the kind of cultural identity confusion that happens. And the first generation that goes there is pretty clear in their heads that we are in America for work, but we are Indian. The generation which is born there, right? Which is also called ABCD in America. American born confused Desi, right? So that generation becomes confused that what are we? Are we Indian or American? Because Indian parents try to bring them up as Indians. So for what happens when it's a multinational community is instead bound by a common religion to reinforce identity, this diaspora is diversity of individuals which have been spread far and across, must find other brands of clue, sacred, secular, coalescing in its composition. So coming together in its compositions. So wherever you have this, right, where the people are far and wide spread out, then you need some form of glue, right? The reason is Parsis in themselves are not in great numbers. Right? It's not a community which is huge. Now imagine them being spread out in different nations. Right? And if they are spread out in different nations, it would not be easy for them to come together. So then for them, these places become very important. Right? These are the places where they go meet, they catch up, and these are the places where it's a point of congregation for them. So that is what the author is trying to basically point out, that all these places opening up, this is good for their Parsi culture, good for their roots. These people can experience, connect, etc., do all of that, right? So which brings us to, that is her main point. Is she trying to achieve anything? To reinforce identity, this diaspora must find other brands of glue, the sacred and secular coalescing in its composition. Though the thought struck me twice recently when the reverberations of a Fimple temple going. The first I only read about. So now coming back to the first paragraph from diaspora, from this, such secular and sacred touchstones become their surrogate country, right? So even though, so these uh yes, the glue is, Shashank, in this case, outside of religion. She's saying it, they are trying to be sacred and secular, right? So when you are sacred and secular, right? So that means A, you are respectful for your gods, and B, there is no discrimination based on religion, right? But this is only talking about building a safe and secular space for Parsis. So there is irony in that. For different types of Parsis, the safe and secular space itself becomes a ironic concept. Agreed? Because you're only building it for one community. So basically, people from different Parsi backgrounds, all of them can come together. They can, even if you are from Iran, if you are from Pakistan, Aden, Africa, post Shah Iran, these become their surrogate country. So what happens is that these people who shifted, right? Now Parsis are from, these people are, they've gone and shifted to different countries, right? Now India and Pakistan, Parsis in India, Pakistan, Aden, Africa, and post Shah Iran, these are not, they are not meeting with each other, right? Right? They can't, for example, they can't meet in India. Not possible. So for them, these become their surrogate countries of sorts, right? So basically tracing their origins, these places is, they come here to find where is it that they belong to, right? And this is a basic human desire. Human beings want a sense of belonging. So these places become their surrogate country. In the context of the passage, the term diaspora can be best described as, diaspora is a neologism, right? It's a neologism. It's the creation of a new word, right? It is not an erroneous use of language. Erroneous would mean that the author is making a mistake. Is she making a mistake? Is she doing it or is she doing it on purpose? She's doing it on purpose, right? So it's not a mistake. A rhetorical device to emphasize the disjointed nature of the diaspora. A rhetorical device is one which is meant for impact. Anything which is made for impact, right? Is it this to impact the disjointed nature, or is it to impact the fact that these people are, is she trying to emphasize this, that they are disjointed in nature through this term, or just trying to emphasize this, that they are spread far and wide? There is no disjointing. All these people are coming together. They are coming together from diverse places. A neologism encapsulating the unifying factors of the Zoroastrian community abroad. So this is a neologism. So this diaspora is, they are in different places, but their neologism, जो which is capturing their unique identity. That is why she's used it in the passage. Is it an ambiguous term? Again, ambiguous would mean she's not unclear about the term, but the author has created this term. Diverspora is not a term that exists. So she's creating it, right? Question number two, the author's primary intention in the passage is B. Illustrate how religious affiliation can act as a cornerstone for identity among dispersed communities. So this becomes religious affiliation is basically your cornerstone for identity. It becomes a place, a melting point, right? It becomes where you connect with people, and that is something that happens. Option number eight, discuss the overarching power of religious belief. Is this passage about religious belief? This is not about religious beliefs, right? Transcending geographical boundaries. This passage is about how these places, how these places are created. Why are these places being created in the first place? The purpose behind them is religious, right? But what does she want to say? That actually these places serve a cultural purpose. So, what would a community create when it's gone outside? It will create a place of worship where they can go. But the place of worship is actually a cultural place to meet for them. It's not about the religion. So that's why it becomes secular as well. Argue that religious connections outweigh national ones in forming a community's identity. There is no such comparison. It does not pit Parsis versus Indians, right? There is no comparison that she's doing. Show that despite geographic displacement, inherent religious propensities prevail. This would mean, despite geographic displacement, religious propensities, which means religious identities, the direction in which they want to go, they prevail. So this would actually be going in the opposite direction again, right? Hence, correct answer option number B. Any doubts in question number two? One and two, anyone had any doubts? I think two का तो universal B answer आया था. Everyone had said B. Last question, the passage primarily explores. What is the passage exploring? It's exploring the establishment of cultural and religious touchstones by the Zoroastrian diaspora. How are they doing this, right? It has got nothing to do with something like see institutional dynamics between different organizations. No, the role of religious ceremonies in reinforcing communal bonds among Zoroastrians. No, it's not about Parsis, about the Parsis and their bonds. The significance of faith in Zoroastrianism. No, this is just about how these cultural centers are made and how people come together in these cultural centers. So hence option number B. How many did you get correct out of 10, guys? Yes, Shashank. बता. 4 is a decent start at this one. 4, 6, 8. Good job, Aryan. Because she gets paid for writing such stuff. That is why she's written it. That's an honest fact, yeah. I'm not joking. You read her articles on a regular basis. She writes on anything. She'll write a satirical piece on Cockroach Janta Party. She will write a satirical piece. She writes a lot about Parsis because she's a Parsi. Her name is Bachchi Kadkadiya. She herself is a Parsi. So this is just analyzing fellow Parsis of the world, right? These are I call these passages slice of life passages, right? Where the author is just writing them. This is my own personal definition, right? This is not a technical term in itself. So why do I call them slice of life passages? These are just observations about life that authors have, right? And they write it for the sake of just making those observations known to people that you can think about or you can see the world through this lens as well. So that is what authors like to do. Yeah, you can do that, Archisman. You can read the questions first. That is not an issue. अगर आंसर नहीं पता चल रहा हो तो देन स्किप हर्तिका, नहीं तो -1 होगा. You don't have to solve like every question. You can skip the odd question, right? हमें अपना overall as a target we have to keep all of you. I would want you to do 20 out of 24 questions. We have to reach 20. One odd question we can skip every now and then, right? 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. Good job, guys. Others, what was your score? Artika, Shashank, तुम्हारा क्या था? Dhruv, we have Preeti, Samriddhi, Vaishnavi, Anshul, Archana, Satvik is 4 out of 10. Abhay 8 out of 10. Good job. Independence of from roots. Okay. शशांक कौन से वाले लाइन एक बार बताएगा, पैराग्राफ बताएगा? वैष्णवी 7, हुशांग 7. इट इज इंडिपेंडेंस फ्रॉम रूट्स ना. अच्छा, वो क्वेश्चन मार्क नहीं देख रहा था. सो it is it is a very confusing situation for people who leave the country. Like, their identity becomes a problem, right? So they've gone from their native land, they've gone to another land. Now they are creating a temple there. Imagine this: you've gone to America, and now you want to create a Parsi temple there. Right? How confusing is that? You left your original native place in the first place, where your original religion was. Now you want to come here and you want to make. So how do you want to go about it? You got independent from your roots. You got separated from your roots. Now do you want to celebrate it? What? It's a rhetorical question in that sense. It's a question that she's asked that, yeah, forced out of Iran. So it is a question that it is asking you that what is what does this signify? Because in a way you want to be connected also, in a way you want to celebrate yourself also. And why build this temple? Otherwise you should have gone and built this temple in your original country. You don't build it there. So you want to celebrate yourself, you want to say that you're a Parsi as well, and yet you want to be in America as well, or in different parts of the world. So there is an inherent dichotomy there, right? There is, and you cannot solve it. It's unsolvable. Great, guys. So it was great to have all of you here today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, Garvit, one of the tips that I suggested, try to read them with annotations. Right, that will help you improve your vocabulary. See, the point is improve vocabulary as much as you can. There is a certain limit, daily limit that you can put in. More words, more than 5 to 7 words, 8 words a day, the brain does not remember anyways. It will keep forgetting them. So try to annotate articles, try to know their meaning in context so that you can arrive at their meanings, understand what is being said. Right? I hope you guys had a great time today. Lots of people who joined in from outside of our course as well. So I hope you guys as well enjoyed the session. You can check out our course as well. And those of you, we will have our regular classes from Tuesday. And Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, we'll have our class on primary purpose questions. We'll do our deep dives that we do 8:30 p.m. Archana, classes are 8:30 to 10 p.m. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So we'll do our regular sessions. We'll meet in those. And for some of you, it was your first session today. So I hope you guys enjoyed your first session, had a good time today.